Hello everybody, Fate here, welcome back to the channel, and I am joined by Big Dill.
What is up?
And today, we're doing the Season 15 Quagsire Power Rankings. That's right, I hope you're ready for us to shit on your teams. Any thoughts, Dylan?
Just don't take too much offense because honestly, there's a reason why your team is gonna be at a certain place.
Right, like
And it's okay.
it's not personal. You should maybe be offended by it, maybe consider changing your team, but it's not personal.
Yeah, no, definitely not. We definitely didn't put anybody last because of their name or anything.
Definitely not. Anyways, let's go ahead and move into 16th. Okay, 16th, we got Big Awesome DK. What do you think about Awesome DK's team, Dill?
At first I was very intrigued with the first two mons being Sneasler and Ursaluna. Maybe there could be some type of synergy. But then Bronzong was picked.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Thunder has brought it back. And then it's interesting from there.
I have to agree with what you said, that I feel like the Bronzong really brought the team down, because we have Ursaluna Blood Moon as, I think, the cornerstone of the team, the best mon on the team. And I think it plus Sneasler is a really interesting combo, because you have such huge breaking power with the Blood Moon, and then really good like sweeping slash cleanup with Sneasler. But I think the rest of the team really falls flat to like support these two. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. The Ogre Pond pickup late in what is that, the seventh round, I believe, or eighth round,
That
is
was
actually
that was the ninth round.
pretty good. Oh, ninth round, my bad. It's actually not bad support. However, I feel like a mon that was better supporting for the team could have been taken instead of that Bronzong in the third round, and probably would have helped with the overall development of this entire team.
Yeah, I think this team just has a like severe lack of mons that I feel like are bringable every week. Like I think you have the top two, Thunderous and Ogrepon, and that's really all the mons that I would be comfortable bringing to every single week. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And then your fairy typing dash gun is
Sucks.
it's
Sucks.
great low tier value, but it's terrible in the grand scheme of things. And obviously cores are preached in a way in today's draft league and the Dragon Fairy Steel core is a little bit lacking. I will say it's not vital.
Dude, the way you said that is so funny.
It's not the entire
The way it's
team.
preached today.
But back to my point, it doesn't make or break a team. However, it's pretty integral, and as you'll see with the later teams, they do have stronger cores. But just overall, as far as the top two is concerned, like Fate said, there's definitely a lack of what mon will I bring this week, and actually feel lack of comfortability with this team is what I'll say.
Yeah, I think there's also just really shitty hazard control. Is there any? Am I tripping balls?
Gur Defog.
Does it still even? I don't even know if it still gets that.
I'm pretty sure Bros said I'm getting Girder because of Defog when he drafted it.
Oh, it does. It does get it. It does get it.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, but severe
yeah,
lack of hazard
that
control.
sucks. That's bad.
And kind of lacking in the setup of hazards as well. I believe Bronzong is your one rocker.
Big Donger. Probably Ursaluna gets it, right? But
Probably Ursaluna, but
no,
like
it doesn't.
nine
It doesn't
times out
even
of
get
10,
it.
you're not running rocks on it.
Yeah,
So.
and you wouldn't click rocks ever anyway, but
Yeah, you want to just click a move that's going to hurt the opponent's Pokemon.
yeah, okay, so to sum up Awesome TK, I think there's like 4 good mons, and I think the rest of the mons like can be brought, but they're not going to be week in, week out good contributors. And there's just not a good hazard game to help support the top 4. You know what I mean? So I think it just really falls flat.
Yeah, I will agree with all those points.
Okay, and let's move back to number 15. We got Big Bear. Big Barry. Barry has the Ancient Squad, the Big Dragons, with Gouging Fire, Walking Wake, and Raging Bolt. However, I don't think the team has a lot to offer outside of those 3.
Yeah, and As you'll see later, but I think it's okay to mention it right now. Multiple people were going for Sun teams, and unfortunately for Barry, he missed out on one of the probably most viable, well, I guess two most viable Sunsetters in Ninetales and Torkoal, both being taken. It was a bold move to go with Gouging Fire, Walking Wake, picks 1 and 2. However, there's still some viability with this team because Gouging Fire as your Terra Captain, being able to set up a DD in almost every Pokemon's face, can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so to like compare this team to DK's, who had the Ursaluna and the Sneasler, I just think Gouging Fire offers a lot more on its own in comparison to the other two, because it can really win games on its own, whereas the other two just won't. They just won't, and that really sets this team apart from 16. Just to compare those two directly. But then you also have Walking Wake and Raging Bolt, which I consider really good mons. So I think that helps it a lot. I do think that there's not much else to say about why this team was higher than DK's, other than Gouging Fire, though.
Yeah, I will say similar situations as far as lack of hazards and lack of hazard control. Both present itself, which you'll see is a growing theme as we move forward with this list.
Yeah, definitely. And similar to DK's, like, one of the reasons this team is so far down is I just think it has a lot of mid-ass Pokemon, brother. Gouging Fire, Walking Wake, Raging Bolt, all really good. Cresselia and Iron Crown can probably be brought to most weeks. There's no other mons on the team that I'm comfortable bringing every week. And then when your 3-year mons are Dragon types, and you only have really Iron Crown to switch in, it's going to be really easy for that Iron Crown to get worn down, especially by better Fairy types and Dragon types, especially if 2 on the same team. It's going to be really... It's asking a lot of Iron Crown.
Yeah, and, mentioning my previous point with DK, a lot of teams are going to have a good Fairy Dragon Steel core, and having one Mon to, in a way, tank all those hits is not great.
Yeah, I agree completely. And when you look at Iron Crown, like, obviously it has really good stats, but I just don't think it is good enough or has the ability to consistently deal with the threats that those are going to deal with. Now, you do have flexibility since you have 3 Dragon types to run like a Haban Berry on one of them and just use one of them to bait, but that's going to come down to how good Barry is as a player.
Yeah, and we will have the whole season to find that out and see if he can prove his ranking wrong.
Indeed. Let's go to number 14 with Big Soup, the Rain Squad of Quagsire.
Yeah, like I mentioned, multiple people were going for the Sun teams, and Soup went the complete opposite direction and chose the Rain team, which is a very bold choice, I will say.
Yeah, for sure. And Soup actually does something similar to Barry, having 2 super good Dragon types early on, and then from there, kind of like built his team out in a way to be able to hopefully have a really good matchup into those Sun teams by having the Politoed to set his own weather, while also having Lilligant and Screamtail to get boosts from their weather. So I think he has a really good matchup into the Sun team specifically.
Yeah, I will say though, I say only, there's multiple issues with this team. However, one that I very much see right now is it's kind of very much rain dependent, and when you draft weather, you don't really want to fall into that trap of having a lot of your team be reliant on the weather, because you want to be able to have flexibility to bring other things besides just the rain.
Yeah, I think my problem is there's just not a lot of power on the squad outside of the top 2. Like, Basque Legion is strong, but you really need the rain. So I think outside the top 2, there's no power really without the rain.
Yeah.
I will say, though, this team has, like, better hazard control, I think, than the previous 2. Like, I think Piloswine and Hitmontop are genuinely bringable mons, and you have the Overquill as well, so.
Yeah, there's definitely better hazards and slightly better removal on this team than the previous ones.
Yeah, I still think, once again, it comes down to me. For how many mons on this team are you comfortable bringing week in and week out? And outside of the top two, plus like Screamtail, I'm not sure I would be comfortable bringing many of these mons week in and week out.
Yeah, I do have to agree with you on that.
Yeah, I don't buy Lilligant Hisui or Basket Legion as week in week out contributors. Polytoad, like, obviously you're gonna bring it probably week in and week out, but it's not, because it's a fucking Polytoad. It sucks.
Yeah,
And then,
it's not meant to be a mon brought in week in without, but you're kind of forcing your hand with it because of the team setup.
yeah, and then also you have the rain, but your abusers are really mid.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I personally would have maybe had one of your abusers as a terror cap, but instead of having the Moltres, which is I mean, yeah, I mean, there's not much versatility. I don't think with having Moltres as a terror cap, besides avoiding the hazards that you can't really get rid of, besides him on top. But you know, we'll see what happens.
yeah, I think that it just feels like it's lacking a lot of consistent contributors. Like, maybe another like real abuser outside of the Archer-Aladon and Basket Legion, I think would have helped a lot, because I'm not gonna count Overquill, bro.
Yeah, no, that mon needs 4 SDs in order to be decent.
Right, exactly. Let's go ahead and move into number 13. We got Paycheck with the big Regieleki plus the boys. I think those first three teams are kind of like in their own tier below where Paycheck is and going forward, because I think Paycheck has a pretty significantly better team compared to them.
Yeah, and you can already see off the bat there's a lot better hazard control with having Samurai Usui, free spike with whatever damage output you're gonna get.
Yeah.
It is actually pretty good in my opinion. It being your second pick, not the greatest, however, there's definitely some positives with this team that you can take away as opposed to the previous teams that we've covered.
Yeah, I think just when you immediately look at the hazard control on this team, you have the Aleki for rapid spin. The Mouse Hole can tidy up. I believe Talonflame probably still can defog. Otherwise, it would be... I don't think it would be 10 points.
It can.
Okay.
It can.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think it would be 10 points.
Yeah.
And then, how to setup-wise, you obviously have the Samurai Hisui, which is one of the best spikers. Mamoswine can set up pretty consistently because it forces switches so easily. I think that just pure on the hazards alone, you're a better team than the other three.
Yeah, there's also solid pivots on this team. It's not a major amount, however, being able to have Volt Switch with the Lucky, U-turn with Talonflame, and I believe I saw one more.
Slowking can Chili.
Slowking with Chili Reception, yeah. Those three being able to pivot out definitely gives you a lot of momentum that you can potentially win the game with, just based off of making your reads.
Yeah,
which is always nice to have.
I just think this team, you have the hazards, and then you have the Aleki and the Mamo to really force switches and let those hazards rack up. And then obviously Aleki's fucking broken, so...
Yeah, you just throw a Specs on there or tear it to whatever type Aleki cannot hit.
Yeah.
With Thunderbolt, and you'll probably be okay for the most part.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear why this team is better than the other ones. The only weakness for me is that there's just not good setup threats, really. I mean, Slowking's probably your best one.
Yeah, and also not even just setup threats, but threats outside of Aleki are kind of lacking. I mean, Mamoswine is obviously a good breaker, but it's it becomes a little more predictable based off of the composition of this team, because it's kind of forced into a banded or scarfed role almost every week.
Yeah, I think you just are going to have a little bit of a linear play style, because, I mean, like we said, just there's no setup threats, and really the offensive threats outside of Aleki are just pretty mid in general. I think you're going to end up seeing a lot of Slowking and Hydrapple trying to put in that offensive work as well as being a defensive mon. But I think that can work when you have Aleki to clean up so easily.
Yeah, like having these top mons that can do so much, definitely it's beneficial to have them because it compensates for the lack of the rest of the team around them.
Yeah, and there's just a lot more good mons on this team. It really just comes down to that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move to number 12 with Sylve and the Chien Pao squad.
Big Chien Pao, Terror Cap, crazy. But honestly, this team, it's not terrible. It's actually pretty solid. But you'll notice with these next couple teams, they're all going to be similarly grouped. As far as they're not the greatest teams in the world. However, there's definitely some team composition when it comes to them.
Yeah, I think paycheck to like, I don't know, around 8 or 7. They're all very similar. So this team, I think, has a really solid defensive backbone with Slowking, Corviknight, Swampert, and even Decidueye to a lesser extent than those three. I think it has a really solid defensive backbone. But there's really only 2 Mons that I find threatening at all. And Chien Pao and Iron Moth. And Chien Pao, I think, really carries this squad hard.
Yeah, obviously, again, we mentioned having that one top Mon is great. However, you'd like to support it with other Mons who can also break as well. And only having one with Iron Moth, while it is a solid Mon, you'd like to have maybe another 2 Mons, or at least one really good one, that can be a secondary option to Chien Pao, breaking down teams, because then it'll make your life a lot easier as a player, and it'll also provide a lot more for your opponent to deal with.
Yeah, I just think the Slowking or the Swampert, one of them could be switched out for another threat that would really help, I think, diversify your game plans in terms of how you're going to do your damage.
Yeah, well, I will say though, there's definitely solid hazards on this team, solid
100%. Yeah.
Pivots as well. So, there's definitely good options with this team despite the lack of offense.
Yeah, I think this team is a lot more cohesive than the first 3 because you have the pivots, you have the hazards, and even though you lack offense, having that cohesion can really help make up for it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I think it's time to move on to number 11 with Star Maiden, and they have the big Iron Valiant Garchomp top 2.
Yeah, that is a very scary combination, to be honest. Even having the Rotom Wash as your third, very, very solid. However, there is a significant drop off after that, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I think Tinkaton is fine, but Serena, Staraptor, Espeon, Umbreon, Komala, and Rabu, I would all classify as Mons that you don't want to bring. You don't want to bring to games.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to disagree with the Tinkaton. I think that Mon is terrible, but
well, I think I think you might be ass, and maybe you did belong in Wooper. But Tinkaton's definitely more bringable than the other ones, at least. I would say.
Yeah, no, it for sure is. However, like we've reiterated with multiple teams, there's a lot of Mons that you aren't going to be comfortable bringing on a week in, week out basis, and it's provides some instability as far as the composition of the team is concerned.
Yeah, I do like the utility that you filled out the team with, though. When you have the rocks with Tinkaton, you obviously can spin with Serena and Komala, and then you can deny hazards with Espeon. I do really enjoy that part of the team.
As well as Gengar and Umbreon, right? Or no, just Gengar. Yeah, just Gengar.
Well, and you have a spin blocker. True.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy at least that utility part of the team, even if I think some of those Mons are like kind of shit.
Yeah, but obviously the top 2 is definitely something to be very concerned about if you are facing their team, because Iron Valiant and Garchomp are no joke.
Yeah, I mean, Iron Valiant offers infinite offensive utility, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously we know what Garchomp is, man. He's a big breaker that also can double as like a defensive wall too. So
yeah, Garchomp is a 2-way wing.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean.
He is actually a 2-way wing. That's crazy. All right, let's
move on to the next team.
Whoa! I went to okay. We got Big Darius.
Big Darius with a big Palafin in the second round. I don't know what these kids are doing over in this draft.
This is your division.
Well, it didn't hit me back. I had a very early pick. Had I had the opportunity to get a different Mon,
Big Pal.
Big Pal.
Yeah. So This team's top three is fucking nuts, brother.
Yeah, it's quite insane, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think Annihilate, Palafin, Hoopa, like Hoopa gives you like pure breaking power. Annihilate gives you one of the scariest setup threats in draft, even though it's like kind of linear, like you're gonna run Scarf Final Gambit if you're not bulk up, right? And Palafin kind of gives you the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And also to piggyback off that, there's actually very solid support mons to follow under these. Though they're not the greatest, they can definitely do a good enough job. With the Quagsire obviously having dual hazards, I believe, with T-Spikes and Rocks and Spikes. Or maybe get Spikes and or Rocks. Obviously Registeel, Cinderace with the core change. Provides you multiple options, so it lessens the load off of the top three mon shoulders.
Yeah, I think when you look at the top 7, like all the mons all the way down to Registeel, all of those are bringable mons that can actually legit come to every game. And then when you fill it out with Vikavolt, Alcremie, Arboliva, and Cryogonal, I think like one of those mons can fill in every 3 games or something like that. And I think it gives you like a pretty solid amount of diversity in what you can bring.
Yeah. Now obviously we've been praising this team a lot, but there's a reason why Darius is only 10th. In my opinion, this team is kind of heavily reliant on setup. Like obviously you have the Palafin, but outside of that, the mons here need to click a move in order to really be able to break other teams, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and even with Palafin, you have to get it set up first too. Like you have to do like flip turn it out or switch it out. So there's that as well.
Yeah, and it becomes a little predictable, especially with your best 4 offense or your top 4 offensive mons, 3 of them being purely physical based. It becomes a little easier to game plan around your team.
And I think the hazard control is a little mid. I mean, I know you have Cinderace, and I believe Noivern should be able to still defog. But yeah, it's still I would classify that as a little mid.
It does, yeah, it can defog, but yeah, it's not the greatest removal in the grand scheme. I mean, I guess Cryogonal spin, but realistically, you're not bringing Cryogonal as a consistent spinner.
I know that personally I would not respect Cryogonal at all.
Yeah, I would not either.
But yeah, I think this team just has that little bit of cohesion and enough good mons for us to put it this high.
Yeah.
All right, moving to number 9. We got Big Zodiac. So Zodiac has the cheater, Zamazenta Crowned.
Yeah, that mon is...
It's going to rob games. It's going to rob games.
Yeah, that mon is... I don't think broken's a good enough word for it, to be honest with you.
It's going to rob games. It's going to win games on its own. And Zodiac's team being this high really comes down to how much we respect Zamazenta.
Yeah, because, I mean, outside of the Zama, it's very lacking in breaking power. I mean, you have Specs Primarina, which obviously puts in the work, but is it really is that the mon you want as your secondary breaker behind the Zamazenta?
I think that if you look at the breaking power, you have to look at Zapdos, Glimmora, and Primarina. Those are really the only 3 mons that I would respect a lot in terms of breaking power. And Zapdos more known for its defense, Glimmora more known for the hazard game, and then Primarina is known for its breaking power, but it's really not, I don't think, a good enough solo breaker to combine with Zamazenta.
Yeah, I agree on that, but what I will say for this team is there's definitely very good hazard control with the Glimmy, obviously. Crocodile, Mesprit, all 3 having access to rocks. Obviously, Glimmora having spikes, T-spikes, and rapid spin is just very good to have in all of that in one bot.
Yeah, I think this team just has a lot of really good utility, and it has the cheater Zamazenta Crowned. And I think Zodiac actually did a really good job, like really building into what Zamazenta is and just trying to surround it with as much utility as he can.
Yeah. and it's not always bad to do that, but I will say it would be nice to have a secondary mon that you can just go in with and potentially break a lot of stuff. So you don't necessarily have to be relying on Zama week in and week out to
Yeah, I just think another
kill
mon
everything.
that could really set like really dig into your opponent's mind when they prep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you want to be able to play some mind games when it comes to preparing for your opponent's teams or
Yeah.
having your opponent prep for you.
There's nothing else that like strikes fear in me, and I think that if there was one more mon that did that on this team, it would maybe be number one. So
Yeah, there's definitely a good chance it could be the best team in this div.
yeah, let's move to number 8. Top half now. We got Big Gonsid and Achilles. I actually think, if I recall, Dylan, you had this team a lot higher than I did. So what are your thoughts?
I just like the breaking power, to be honest. Having the sun set up with the Great Tusk you as your two abusers is,
It's
I don't want to
disgusting.
say cheating, but it's close to it. And obviously, I just like the support that's provided around this team, to be honest, with the Sylveon, Scizor, Araquanid, even the Ments. Like, obviously, it's there more so as a breaker, but Mets could actually be a very good support mon in certain matchups. So, then you also have the whole illusion of Zoroark that could throw your opponent for a loop. So
Yeah, that's
there's
really
there's a lot
nasty
of
to combine with Chiyu, by the way.
yeah. I mean, with the similar moves and everything, it's just I truly do like this team. Now, why did you have this so low? Is the real question.
Well, so I generally I don't believe in weather that strongly, but I do think this team is good. Like you said, the breaking power is pretty disgusting, and then when you have a really strong like setup sweeper and Salamence to like maybe clean up games or stuff like that, I think that helps a lot. I just think it comes down to, for me, how many Bronze do I think are bringable, and Tusk, Chiyu, Sizz, Ninetales, Zoroark, Sylveon, and Salamence are great as like your main core, and then you have Araquanid, but I think that's really it. I don't really respect the rest.
No, I do have to agree, and there's also a lack of hazards on this team as well. You have Great Tusk Rocks, which are
And
again
Araquanid.
not really going to be brought in if they are probably not clicked for the most part. And outside of that, Araquanid webs, but
Yeah, and
there's definitely a lack of hazards.
that's probably the bigger thing for me, is that Tusk under Sun, you don't want to have to waste a move slot on rocks. So I think just having another rocker would help skyrocket this team.
Yeah, just any other hazards would allow for a lot more breaking to happen with this team too, because you can break or chip a lot of stuff that might not get O-code otherwise, which would be very beneficial for this team.
Yeah, I also don't love the speed tiers. I would love a mon faster than Zoroark, so you're not relying on like Scarfers and like Chiyu or Ninetales, or like a Scoville and Chlorophyll. Now you do have the Araquanid to try to offset that, though.
Yeah, for sure. But overall, this team definitely, though lacking hazards and a little bit of defense, in my opinion, has definitely a good enough team to just break through teams
Yeah,
if you're not prepared.
I think it's a solid team, and that's why it's right in the middle. And let's move to number 7, where we got Big Umut with the other Sun team.
Yeah, and I believe this is the third Sun team that we've seen.
Right.
But this one has a little twist with also having sand.
So, I know I said I am generally not a fan of weather. I love dual weather. I think dual weather is really cool. And I think that sand is never not going to be good. Excadrill is always going to be able to be a huge threat in prep. It's always going to be able to, like, late game, you're just always going to have to consider, like, are my mons healthy enough to live a hit from Excadrill? Probably not. Probably not. Excadrill's, like, a bad motherfucker, bro. He's going to hit you hard as shit. So
Yeah, I know
what's your plan?
personally. Yeah, personally, when I prep just in general throughout the couple years I've played Mons, I've always slept on Excadrill, and I think most people probably do the same because you don't really see it as that big of a threat. However, with the speed boost from the sand, along with just being able to slap a band on that, it is definitely a scary sight for opposing teams. Along with still a Terror Roaring Moon that could not be forced to run booster energy and instead run a I don't know choice item or life orb
I
with
think
the sun.
I think that's the thing on top of it is that I think Excadrill is already like Excadrill T-Tar are really good mons on their own already, but you combine that with Roaring Moon, Under Sun, with like no move restrictions. It's disgusting. It is disgusting. And we're recording this after week 1. Roaring Moon was the best mon like in the whole league in week 1. So
Yeah,
it's just a really disgusting Pokemon, and I think all the mons on this team are bringable too, by the way, which I think really
yeah,
helps boost this team.
not for sure. And then also, again, not very reliant. You're not super reliant on just having sand or sun. Like Roaring Moon can exist without Excadrill, though it suffers a lot. Can exist without it, and then you still have a Thundurus there. Even Venusaur, just as a mon itself, solid bulky mon, not the greatest, but you can make do with it. Along with Suicune, very good support mon. So, like, even if you draft Weather, you don't being able to deviate away from it is also nice to have.
Yeah, and the hazard control on this team is really solid as well, with the Torkoal and the Drill to Rapid Spin, and then obviously they both get Stealth Rock as well, and then you got T-Tar. So I think this team is really solid. You just got a bunch of good mons on a squad, and then you combine that with 2 weathers for your opponent to prep for. I just think it's solid.
Yeah, and obviously we're getting into the top half of these teams. You'll notice that a lot of these teams were good. It's just there's very slight differences that'll have them one spot above each other.
Yeah, and to be clear, I guess we should have said this at the start. We both had our own individual rankings, and then we took the average of the two.
Yeah,
I don't
for
know.
sure.
We should have led with that. We're fucking stupid.
And that's fine.
Yeah,
They'll watch long enough to figure this out.
surely.
Yeah.
Number 6, I went the wrong way. Number 6 is Big Martin with the
Terrible team.
Yeah, I know this might be PTSD for you, so I might have to take the lead here. Big Martin with the Baxcalibur plus the let's just call it the best hazard setup in the division.
It's all right. Nah, I'm hating. No, there's actually very good hazards with the Wheezing having T-Specs, I believe. Obviously, Meowscarada, Skarmory, Sandy Shocks, even Infernape with the rocks is always potential, and then Azelf and Colossal. Just almost every mon having access to some type of hazards is pretty freaking good.
It's really good, and I would add that all these mons are very bringable as well, and that's I think as when you get higher, you'll just see that pretty much every mon on the good teams are bringable, and like half the bad teams, like half the teams on the bad teams, the mons just can't come.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of versatility, you could say, with this team because obviously, though Bax is clearly the number one, Meowscarada, Sandy Shocks, and even Infernape can all be viable options as breakers.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of versatility in terms of how you want to run the offensive mons on this squad with Meow, Sandy Shocks, Infernape, in addition to Baxcalibur. I think first, like, they all have really good breaking power, but then Infernape gives you another really huge setup threat in combination with Baxcalibur, which I really like.
Yeah, not even that, but the defensive backbone as well with the Skarm, um, Wheezing, and Vaporeon is actually very good. Though it probably will get slept on this season, is very solid.
100% it's very solid. And then, I think that you could argue that there's limited hazard removal for Martin when all you really have is Colossal and Big Wheezing. But I don't
Yeah,
think that matters when you're probably going to set up Stealth Rock and a bunch of spikes most games. If you're fighting a team that doesn't have spin and they only have defog, then you don't have to really worry about what they're going to set up on you.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot to like with this team.
Yeah, 100%. I think it just shows like what happens when you draft a bunch of mons that are really usable, that give you a lot of versatility.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to number 5. We got LOLs here, brother.
Yeah, Gen 7. They want their teams back.
Well, there's the Dragon Ball, but
anyways, somebody didn't understand the joke. But obviously with the Clef and Heatran and Manaphy.
And the Manaphy.
But no, this team. Why do we have lulls this high?
Okay, well, I actually like the team a lot. I think Pult is obviously Pult is just Dragapult. I don't know if I would ever draft a 25 pointer though and not Terra it, so I think that's questionable. But I think when you have Pult, Clef, Heatran, that obviously gives you a really good defensive backbone with Heatran, Clef. And then in terms of breakers, Manaphy and Ogerpon are really solid together. The Dragapult gives you the best speed tier really that is going to be had outside of Aleki in the division. And then you combine that all with pretty good hazard setup in Quillfish and Fortress, which can definitely come to games. And then we'll skip Gligar. But Aloe and Mudsdale can also both come to games.
Yeah, I just don't know how consistently they're going to be brought when you have Clef and Heatran who can set up hazards better. Obviously, that's not all they can do. However, that is pretty much what they do for the most part, outside of the occasional Scarf / Specs Heatran or Cosmic Power Clef.
I don't even know if Clef gets Cosmic Power, brother.
Oh, does it not anymore?
I think you might be just. We'll just replace that word with Combine.
No, it does.
Oh, it does. Okay, but
yeah.
I think when you just look at the top 5, it's just a really solid top 5. Probably better than most top 5s in the league. And the rest of the mons, like, they're probably not as ringable as Martin's, the rest of Martin's, but I think the top 5 is better. So,
yeah,
I think that's really what the difference is. It's a really solid top 5.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a lot of just stability within the top 5 mons that you're getting on a game in game out basis with them.
I don't feel like we have a lot more to say, though, about LOLs. Let's go ahead and look at Musa Sensei's team with a Bundy.
Big bundle. Yeah, this team is definitely, again, reiterating, we're going to harp on this theme a lot, but most of the mons on the team are very bringable to every game. But having Iron Bundle, Goldango, Gliscor as your top 3, very solid, and then obviously you have the Sprata and the Urshifu Rapid as your Terra Caps, which are honestly pretty scary when you actually look at the entire makeup of this team, because not only do you have to prepare for Iron Bundle being specs or just being able to click out of Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, which is very hard to deal with by itself. You now have to deal with the potential not water fighting Urshifu Rapid will be terrestrialized with bulk up, with setup options, or potentially just a simple CM speed boost Sprata. So there's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, I actually I just want to touch on Iron Bundle and Urshifu Rapid on the same team really quick. I think some people might think that's a little redundant. Like, you both have 2 really good water types, like Big Wolf Brother. But Iron Bundle and Urshifu Rapid, like, they're both water types, so you're gonna have similar checks theoretically, right? Like, most teams only have a few water resistances.
Yeah, and not only
they hit so hard on the different attack stats that it's really hard for you to have 1 or 2 mons to check them. It's just not going to be something that's feasible. And then when you add in the ability to terrestrialize, it's fucking crazy.
Not to mention Iron Bundle also has access to freeze dry. So
right, exactly.
It's just going to make your water type die,
I think it gives you... I just really like those 2 mons paired together. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, and then also, we haven't even mentioned the defensive backbone with Clef, Key Screen potential. Obviously, the Alolan Muck and the Gliscor Goldango is just disgusting, to be honest.
It is disgusting. And then, obviously, I just want to talk about Spothra real quick. As a mid-tier Terra captain, it's probably like the best one. I know it's like has a somewhat linear game plan, and you know it's gonna speed boost, you know it's gonna claw mind, it's gonna do whatever the fuck, but it's just not that easy to prep for when you have as many good bonds as Musa does.
Yeah, and also the major check for Esprata would be any dark type, and there's an Urshifu Rapid right there that will just get rid of the dark type.
Right, and then you also have Goldango to even chip those so Espathra can kill it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually really like this squad a lot.
I do too, yeah.
And I think when you look at the hazards, I think Gliscor Klefki is good enough setup, and I think Cyclozar's fine as a removal, plus you have Goldango.
Yeah.
So that your shit can't get removed.
Yeah. So moving on to the next team, we have... Oh, wow, that's crazy. Who's that?
Oh, my gosh. I don't know. Who is this guy? Who is this
guy? I don't know. But he drafted a very good team.
You think so?
I think so.
So, you know, there's potential that he did. This guy does have a Dragonite, and Dragonite was probably the second best mon through week 1 of the league, but that was in no part due to Big Dill.
No, absolutely not. I did not account for Galarian Wheezing.
Yeah. Anyways, talking about the team, I think this team has a lot of bringable mons, like we've been harping on, and that is really, really huge. But it's just a really solid offensive squad with a lot of pivots to get in your really big breakers in Ursaluna, Hoopa, and D-Knight. And then you also have good win cons in D-Knight and Greninja. And yeah, you go ahead. Give me your
I just want to mention, I found, in my opinion, the best low tier Terra Cap in Hoopa. Yeah, Iron Thorns exist, but like Hoopa gets set up.
Hoopa do set up.
Hoopa be setting up.
But yeah,
I do like the composition of my team. You know, obviously there's a double water with Blastoise and Greninja. However, they both serve different purposes. I got the Grimmy for the screens. I think my team is okay. Fate was gassing it more than I was, to be honest. Because I just think it's a lot of solid mons put together that can just go out and win games.
Yeah, I think that the only real issue with this team is going to be just like, what is your defensive backbone most weeks? Because I think a lot of teams have the defensive backbone where it really makes their game plan a lot easier, especially in prep. Their game plan's a lot easier. The game can kind of play itself for them, whereas you really don't have a huge defensive backbone. So it's going to really require you, I think, to nail down a good game plan and prep. Think about it a lot. And play better.
Yeah, and we'll see how that goes.
But I think as an offensive squad, it's really, really solid. I think you have the hazards that you need with Gran and Jirachi, and Grimmsnarl gives you like an extra layer in terms of what you can do as an offensive squad. And then you have Big D-Knight, which is maybe the most broken mon allowed.
Yeah, and we'll see if I can actually use it.
Really going to push. I think when you have a D-Knight, a Chien Pao, a motherfucker like that, you're going to get pushed up.
Significantly, as long as the rest of the team is solid.
Yeah. Anyways, number 2. We got Big Uno.
Big Uno with the Ogerpon Torn. Honestly, I really like the 2 combination, or that 1-2 punch with Ogerpon and Torn, because a lot of stuff that Torn is weak to / struggles with, Ogerpon is able to just... Wow, I forgot the word I was going to say.
Right, burn through, punch through.
Nah, there was a word I was going to say. Decimate, that's the word. But then, you know, obviously Donphan round 3 is a major question mark, but he picked it back up with the Duck and the Hydreigon.
I honestly don't know if Donphan round 3 is.
You don't think so?
No. So here's my thought process: is that the really shit teams or like the really shit teams, the teams that we have ranked low, have really bad hazard control, whether it's setting up their own hazards or removing opposing hazards. So Dom Pit gives you the like really good at both things. Really like easily, you're done, you're good. You really don't have to worry about it much.
Yeah, that is a very valid point, and yeah, to consider the fact that a lot of these teams are ranked lower due to lack of hazard control / lack of hazards. Donphan being this high maybe isn't the worst thing in the world, but yeah, the breaking power behind the Ogerpon is also nice with the Hydreigon and the Quaquaval. Obviously, Iron Thorn's also
Big
one of the
Thorns.
best low tier Terras that you can get. Just all of that is just solid behind the Ogerpon, which we already know what Ogerpon does.
Yeah, I think I really like Ogerpon and Torn as your top two because they provide you different things. Obviously, Ogerpon is maybe the best or one of the best breakers in the format, and then Torn, it gives you immense utility. Really, what it's known for in draft is just being the utility monster, and it has such a great speed tier that you're set for the rest of the draft. So I really like how different they are as your top two, and they're both like monsters.
Yeah. And then obviously very solid support with the Comfey. And in my opinion, a very bad steal in Caparajah, but I know Fate has his opinions.
Yeah, I think Caparajah is solid.
I will say I wish there was a way, just shrink down the points, maybe combine some of those later Mons under Thorns into something, maybe an 8-pointer, so you could have another viable option to throw in there. Because my only gripe with this team is it's kind of obvious what 6 you're going to bring on a game-to-game basis. You'd like to have a little more versatility in opponent prep.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could probably shrink Avalok, Meowstic, Haunter into 2 Mons, and save some points there, and have like one good Mon, and then get your Haunter again, I guess, because you still would have a 1-pointer, right?
Yeah.
I think that would make the team better. But like you said, the breaking power with Quaquaval, Hydreigon, Iron Thorns behind the Ogerpon is really, really solid. And the utility with Torn, Donphan, Comfey, and Caparajah, I think really just gives this team plenty of utility that it needs. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And moving on.
Finally, number 1 is what, Dylan?
Is Scoot.
Big Scoot.
Big Scoot Henderson. We got the NBA player up in here, coming off his rookie year. He want to play some Pokemon.
Right.
Anyways, moving on to the team itself. I mean, it's just very good. Like, I will say we are recording this past week 1. So I do know my week 2 matchup is this team, and honestly, I don't know how I'm going to prepare with an Urshifu single, Iron Treads, Terracurum, or Dirge, with the Landorus there as support, Milotic as a bulk option, and yeah, there's still a hat that can do things to me, which I don't want done.
Yeah, I think that like Kilowattrel, Quilladin, and actually not ignore Quilladin. Kilowattrel and Vigoroth are mid, but it's fine. I think you needed the speed tier, so I get it. But if you just look at Urshifu, Kyurem, Lando T breaking power, it is gross. It's disgusting. You're going to be able to have the ability to break through every team. And then you pair that with the utility of the Treads, the Hatterene, the Skeletors, and the Milotic as sort of like a utility / defensive backbone. It's gross. It's gross. It's really fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Kyurem got back to him, to be honest. Again, I don't know what these kids in this thing are doing. But this team is just nasty, bro. Like, even just the fact that you could Terracurum outside of a type it's not weak to, I don't know, Steel or something, and then just do the little DD Icicle Spear sub stuff with it.
The demon with Terra?
The demon with Terra is just insane, bro.
I think you're right that the demon Kyurem set is disgusting when you can also change your typing. And I think that speaks to how much setup threat there are on this team when you have the Urshifu, the Kirim, the Lando, and like Hatterene, Loki as well.
I mean, even treads to a certain extent. You throw the booster energy, you click rapid spin once, and you can sweep teams potentially if they're not prepared.
I think
So
that's honestly totally fair. Yeah,
yeah, it's just it's disgusting, bro.
it is a
It's so
disgusting team.
disgusting.
And then you also have big Skeledirge with Terra, so you never
With
have to like you can build the Skeledirge to check whatever you want it to check because it's like that with when you have Terra, you never have to worry about setup threats against you either.
yeah, just nasty, honestly.
It is a
Just
nasty
nasty.
team. I think that's all we got to say though. So hopefully
Yeah.
you guys aren't too mad about where we put you. Don't worry if I called your team shit. Uh, you know, just take a look at what else you can pick up, brother.
Yeah, there's definitely still some very good mods that went undrafted and a lot of time to fix some of these holes that the teams have.
100% because there were the points were low. We were a little constricted, so there's a lot of good mods left.
But yeah, with that being said, I believe this will be the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe to my boy Fate. He's been putting in that work.
Right. All right. We'll see you guys.
Bye.